Hi everybody, welcome to our discussion today. I'm here with, as the CMP of PwC Croatia, I'm here with former CMPs, Tanja Rukavina and Albert Schoenberger, and we're here to talk a little bit about the history of PwC in Croatia, seeing as this is the marking of our 25th anniversary. We started back in 1997, and both Albert and Tanja had their time as CMPs. Albert, I think you were from 1998?
98, yes.
98?
2003 I was here in Croatia, yes.
Okay, excellent.
But initially I was just in charge of the audit division and took over later from Frane Božina.
Frane Božina, yes.
Yeah.
From Coopers and Lybrand,
from
yeah.
The C&L side, yes.
Yeah, okay. So let's establish one thing here. We're all, the three of us are legacy Price Waterhouse people, but there's a lot of Coopers people that came in through as well that time. Tanja, you were a CMP from which year? You were CMP for a long time.
Actually, I was CMP after Albert, because I wasn't a partner when I first started to work in Croatia. I was the initial rep of the PwC Zagreb.
Yeah.
Zagreb.
So let's go back then, you know, thinking about that, back to the, even before 1997, how did you come out to be in Europe in the first place?
Well, I started with Price Waterhouse in Vancouver in 1988, and after 5 years and having qualified for my CA, Chartered Accountancy, I was restless to have a secondment somewhere. And since Croatia was opening up, and it was just this was 93, Croatia was opening up with the Homeland War finishing, and I thought there might be an opportunity to do something in Croatia. I asked for a transfer to Croatia, and they said, well, we don't have an office in Croatia. I said, okay, give me something close. So they sent me to Budapest, where I spent 4 years. 2 of those were strictly in Budapest, and 2 of those from the later years, 95 to 97, was trying to develop business in Croatia. I had the support of the PW partners in Budapest. It was Chris Barbie, Gustav Biener, Dennis Snyder subsequently, and a whole bunch of other partners, Peter Gerendashi, that helped, and we tried to develop client relationships in Croatia. We made a little presentation to a board at the time in the Netherlands, and they gave us, I think it was to the tune of 500,000 Deutschmarks to open a rep office. And we thought, wow, that's, huge money. But it was very modest. It was a very modest beginning. Yeah. We were introduced to Inženjerski Biro, a respectable consulting and audit company here in Croatia at the time. And we ended up having a little office in their premises in Heinzelova. And at that time it was myself, Vesna Gatti, who was my assistant at the time, and Johnny, you came in 97, beginning of 97. And that's how it started. And slowly we pulled other people. We used the services of the audit department, audit company of Inženjerski Biro, which eventually those people transferred to us when we became a proper company here in Croatia. And we developed client relationships a lot through Inženjerski Biro and a lot through our own doing. So
if I can go back just a second, so could you recall the first client you ever had contact with in Croatia? I'm sure it was before 97. You were. I
think we did a pitch for Pliva at the time. It was still Mr. Čović at the head, and it was me and Tibor Almashi going out to do some kind of advisory pitch for Pliva. I don't think that amounted to anything at the end of the day, but our first big client was Tankirska plovidba in Zadar. And that was a perfect audit. It was in the summertime in Zadar. Zadar was empty because it was just after the war. Yeah. Client was fantastic. And we used a team of, I was the manager at the time, so I was setting the audit, and a team from Hungary. And we had the best time in every sense of the word. We learned a lot and played a lot, and it was really great. And to this day, I have relationships with these clients.
That's excellent. Speaking of playing a lot, I recall you letting me know you went to Wembley in 1996 to watch Croatia play.
Yes, it was the first game Croatia as an independent country playing at Wembley. It was England versus Croatia, and we took some key clients, which were HEP at the time, and I believe someone from the Prime Ministry of Privatization at the time, and it was wow, it was amazing. We had this great VIP booth, and it was spectacular. I mean, it meant a lot to me, being Croatian. It meant a lot to be at that first game.
We won't talk about the result of that game.
I don't even remember the result of that game.
But
that wasn't the point. The point was the building the relationships, and it was great.
Wasn't the point at all, yeah. Albert, during this time, you were still in Switzerland, I take it.
Yes, I was in Switzerland. I joined PW in '74, and my career in Switzerland. And when the merger was announced between PW and Coopers & Lybrand for July 1, 1998, I saw that this position was open, and since my private life has ties to Croatia since a long time, my first wife is from this country, and I spoke the language a little bit, so I was quite happy to come to Croatia to work here.
From your point of view, when you first came, you know, you're an FS, you were an FS partner, financial services, banking, and Switzerland is known for the highest banking quality in the world. How did that look to you when you came to Croatia, when you first started to actually work here?
I mean, it was very attractive because the Coopers & Lybrand people, they had about half of the banking clients in Croatia. There were about 60 banks at the time.
60 banks.
And they had, I think, about 30 banks as their clients. I think that the problem was more that the asset quality in these banks was a bit of an issue, because it was very difficult to assess the value of the loans they had given to their clients. Especially not for me, coming from the outside, not understanding all the backgrounds and the political side of this loan business the individual banks had done. Most of the banks were small regional banks, and they were part of the local community and local politics, and it was very difficult to assess that. The largest client we had at the time was Privredna Banka, and it was an interesting client, and I think we did a good job at the time. At the time, there were no foreign banks except Raiffeisen Banka was already in Croatia, but all the other foreign banks, they only bought in when these local banks were privatized, were sold, PwC and Splitska and all the other banks.
Yeah, that happened, actually seemed to happen pretty quickly afterwards.
Yeah.
The number of banks really reduced quickly. But
Yeah.
Did you find, from a different perspective, how did you find management in those banks, the people you had to deal with? Did it feel similar to what you had experienced in your career in Switzerland, or was there a different sort of approach to things?
I think it was a much more personal approach than some of the banks were, in a way I would call this professional. So they were really on the top, they were on the spot they knew what they were doing. In other banks, it was more kind of on friendship based, and you knew the people, and you didn't care about too much about the rules, and so it was like a mixed feeling for me.
Yeah.
And you could also say, I mean, you could tell which banks was more in a crisis situation based on the management team they had and on the way they operated at the time. So it was quite an interesting picture for me to see how different these banks are run. Yeah.
But Jennifer, remember, that was a very emerging time in this region, in every sense of the word. I mean, businesses were being created because prior to, in the old system, there were no private businesses really. Lending was quite new, I imagine, Albert, because people were not used to having debt, at least the personal lending. And as our clients grew and struggled with all these issues that they had in international lending, and they need to have verification from international audit firms, we grew with them. I mean, we helped them along the way, but and they also helped us in developing our practice.
So I'll say, just throw in a bit here now when we talk about developing our practice, and we have people, people are what get the work done. Our practice today, we have separate departments in advisory. You have deals, you have consulting, M&A, we have PLS, tax and legal, we have EU services, and of course we have assurance, which is no longer just audit. There's capital markets activities, there's PwC Academy, we have a number of other things. We have risk assurance services. Back in the day, Tanya, remember, what did we do when we were?
We did audit, the due diligence, because that was a time when international investors were looking to invest. And some of our even key clients today, for example, Luksic Group, started way back when they were purchasing Karlovačka Pivovara and subsequently the hotel groups.
But the
But
thing
it was very easy work. It was very basic stuff. It wasn't anything science fiction. I mean, there's no capital raising because these companies were not prepared, to get a bank loan. Never mind, to have an IPO.
But in terms of having separate departments, I recall doing 1 week I'm doing an audit, next week we're doing due diligence.
We did everything.
We did a bit of
We
everything.
did our own typing. We did our own printing.
Yeah.
I mean, it was in a lot of ways improvisation. I mean, we didn't compromise on quality, but it was a lot of time put in on things today that we take for granted, with the technology being today what it is, and we certainly didn't have that in the old days.
Yeah, so now we have Wi-Fi everywhere. Before we were pulling out sockets and putting in our computer,
I mean, it was all over the place.
LAN cords, just to try to get a Wi-Fi connection.
Yeah, now, looking back, and then it was frustrating, very frustrating, because you had a deadline, you had to get things out, but, and you just couldn't do it. You couldn't figure out the technology. Now it looks funny, but at that time it was
Sign of the
very
times.
stressful. Yeah.
I remember the time when I started, nobody had a computer, or very few people had a computer. There was Frane, he had a computer on his desk, which I think he never used.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
but
this is
he
true.
had one because one had to have
One
a
had to
computer.
have one,
Yeah, but most of the other people didn't have a computer at the time,
Yeah.
and we had to go through major expenditures to buy computers for all the staff. So,
Yeah, that's a big expense today, and they're very disposable these
Yes,
days, right?
yes,
So
yes.
you're constantly changing. Yeah, but back then I recall getting my first computer and first mobile phone actually as well at
Yeah,
the time.
my gosh, those Nokia things, huh?
Yeah, whatever they were. Yeah, Nokia, give them a plug, but
I think I still have mine.
okay, we can work on that. We'll
We'll
figure
work on
something
that
out.
one.
Yeah, but that was a different time in that respect, and that kind of, I think, impacted how we did business. And the point I wanted to make was, you talked about our first clients, and you were involved initially in acquiring some of our first major clients,
Yes.
some of which are still around today.
Yes.
And you mentioned Luksic Group, but part of that there was also Atlantic Grupa, there is Adris Grupa,
Adris.
which is still a client today. These are,
We
these
had
are,
big clients like HEP for a long time, Dalekovod.
yeah. But how was, you described from your point of view, how was that process in terms of acquiring those clients? What did we do?
Well, it was much more personal, I think, than it is today. The levels, it was relationship building. You went out and did a pitch, let's say, but it was followed up by a number of lunches and discussions, and on a coffee level, idemo na kavicu, that kind of situation, which I think, to me, it's a lot more heartwarming, and I like it better than the way things are done today, where it's more clinical, I would say. But relationships are still important, very much important today. But at that point, they needed you, and being a foreigner who understood their language, who understood their culture, they innately had a trust in me. So that was my big selling point, I would say. I knew their language. I didn't say, oh, we used to do it this way in Canada. You had to be polite enough to say, this is this country, this is the way they do it, this is the current times. Let's work through all the issues together. So I think that's basically how it worked, Johnny. And I think we were fair to our clients all along the way. I mean, of course you had issues with every one of them, so many times back.
I think, Tanya, the one thing that maybe you're being modest about, but it's that's, you didn't say that's how we did in Canada, but one thing we did do in Canada, we were very honest, right? This is what we learned growing up
Yes.
there, and I have to say, Albert, I'm sure you have a similar history, and I'm not saying people are dishonest here, but they were maybe at times surprised by this, because we were very open and transparent about what we're trying to do. And I can say that from my perspective, because I'm still here, that a lot of relationships still exist today just because of the fact that there's trust. And that trust was created by these initial relationships, delivering on our promises, delivering or fighting to get things done, and meeting the very tough deadlines, taking responsibility and accountability, but being very open and honest, which is part of our sort of culture where we grew up.
And remember, guys, it was always a juggling game. I mean, we had to deal with somebody outside. At least, Johnny, you and I, before we were partners, we had to deal with somebody signing off in another country, who came in at the very last minute to the client. So you were the filter. You had to deal with everything here and make sure it was all okay for the person who was going to review that.
Actually, is it fair to say that, sorry to cut you off there, but Albert, you were the first partner come in to be a resident for us.
Yes.
From a PW perspective, actually. To be honest, first foreign partner to come in and start to be resident here, actually, basically. I think that was...
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes, because
Yeah.
otherwise we had different service lines, we had different partners signing off from primarily Hungary.
Well, primarily, we have to
Yeah.
we have to mention Dennis Snyder.
Absolutely,
Dennis Snyder, he was very
one of the key
helpful.
guys, yeah.
And he was, a guy from New York, or a New York-based partner, and came out of Hungary. And I remember him always driving in on late Sunday night or early and arriving Monday morning. And this guy drove straight to the office and be here at 7 o'clock and be looking at you when you walked in. It was just.
He drove us crazy. I mean, he was. I could say honestly, I had 3 mentors in my life, in terms of my career. First one was John Webster in Vancouver, who subsequently, ironically, became one of the partners in the region.
Yes.
Before he retired. And then second one was Chris Barbie. He's now in Philadelphia, I believe. And Dennis Snyder, who was very supportive of this office and very supportive of me and my partnership candidacy and everything. And one can certainly learn a lot from all these 3 men. But Dennis was the one that, when he would come out, we would shake in our boots, looking at files, and we'd wonder, what is he going to ask? Something that we totally missed. We weren't even thinking about it. And he would come out of the area and you go, wow, that's a good point. How did he come up with this?
I think I was in awe of him just because of the experience that he had, and there's a couple of things he said when he had a lot of good moments, but he had a couple of moments, as you said, it was scary, but a lot of moments that left us in awe. And when there was 2 things I remember really well. One is with Victor Lenats when he came up with fighting with the management team there on an accounting treatment.
Yeah.
Tell them to book something, and he found a solution that made it even look better for them.
Yeah. I remember that.
And you remember him walking out, and we said, Dennis, that was amazing. And he just said, that's why I get paid the big bucks. That's what he said.
And
it
it's
was
years
like,
of experience, and this is what you needed that in the country, and the clients really appreciated it. So I think we added value.
oh, he added value all the time. But he could also be very modest, because I remember speaking to him, and I go, how do you know this? He goes, I already made that mistake a long time ago. And you don't make it again, right?
Yes.
So he's one of these guys you really learn from. And that was, I guess, when you think about this, is all of us are expats in a different way, but that was the benefit of the expats coming in at that point in time, because they had the experience in a different market and could actually share that with us, and we could learn from this, okay? Because we were both very heavily impacted by it. And Albert,
Coming in with a fresh view.
Yes.
And,
Fresh view.
yeah. But also what helped me or my clients was whenever there was a problem, I didn't say in Switzerland we do it differently. I said, I've seen in Switzerland they do it that and that way. And they say, oh, perhaps there is an idea.
Yes,
Then
and
they
you
pick it up
were the
and-
important guy because you were from Switzerland.
Yeah.
Everyone wanted to be a Swiss banker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then they come on their own on the idea how to do it.
Yeah.
Just give them an example of how it could be done, not this is the way to do it.
well, this is part of the culture and part of having more of a coaching impact
Exactly.
as
Yes.
opposed to being a dictator and saying it has to be this way or that way. You were very friendly and understanding, right? And as you said, help them come up with a solution.
And I think we all tried to pass that on to our staff over the years as well. That they should be learning along with these situations and go out to clients with us and listen to the big meetings and get something out of it, not just be going like this on their computer and
But
shifting numbers left and
it's
right.
sharing the experience, though. I think that's what it is. We still have that culture today, and I think this is one of the big things. Is we're proud of today. We have 250 people or around abouts there, and we have a very strong, positive culture that is always a moving target. But I think the basis of that is the honesty, integrity, and this sharing and this common desire for everybody to move forward, right? And everybody to succeed. And that's exactly what you're talking about. It was very prevalent then because the country was in a different state.
Yes,
right?
yes. Country was emerging, and then we were emerging with them. I mean, all our offices in this region started in a similar manner.
So speaking of offices, we talked about this the other day, but I'd like to bring it up. And people may not know this, is that when you came and when we joined forces with Cooper's, we also inherited actually 6 offices. We have only 1 office in Zagreb today. But we had in Pula, we had in
Šibenik,
Šibenik,
Zadar, Split.
Rijeka.
Rijeka. Yeah, Rijeka was there for a long time. I think it was the last one.
Yeah, it was last one to close.
To close that, apart from Zagreb. So, we had a completely different sort of setup with the
Yes.
people then. And if I recall correctly, when Inženjerski Bureau joined us, we had 40 new staff,
Yes.
40 people. And then when Cooper's merged with us, we had 80 staff in total. So another 40 joined. And I think that's a number we had for a long time, which is primarily core audit, right?
Yes, it was more, some tax,
Some tax, yeah.
some tax, yeah. And advisory spun off. I mean, there was a very handful of people in advisory, at most.
Yeah, they didn't start
Yeah,
developing
it didn't
until the
start till later.
2000s, to become a real sort of force in the office. And then that's when we started to actually move locations as well, right? So
Yes.
from Heinzelova.
To Von Humboldtova.
Yes, the Ingra building,
The Ingra
right?
building, yeah.
That was a long stay for us there as well.
Yes.
But we first moved all together in Heinzelova, the original building.
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Cooper's had a building by the
Kennedy
Kennedy Economsky Fox, by Kennedy of Turk, and then they finally all moved over because we had two spots at
We
one
had two
point in time.
spots and it was not efficient, so,
Yeah.
to get the sharing and experience, you need to have people together.
Actually, this was my first real office then. I was at Kennedy of Turk.
You were?
Yeah, I moved there for a couple of months before we all lived together. Yeah. That was interesting.
Because it was us and them sort of atmosphere for a bit.
That didn't last for long.
because they were strong in banking and all the banking people were there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it makes sense.
Actually, it was a good fit because we had the corporates, we had the blue chips of the Croatian corporates, and they had the blue chip banks.
Yeah.
So I think it was a perfect merger.
Yeah, at that time, I think that made us perhaps the strongest office at that point in time
Yeah.
in the Big Four. It was still big. It was Big Five actually at that time until it was.
Arthur Anderson.
Until that happened, right? So, interesting times.
It was
then.
interesting times. I mean, yeah. Those were days that shaped us in so many ways. I mean, it was our key development years from a business perspective. It was your personal development as well. I mean, I came out for 2 years secondment and I stayed 25. I mean, and I have no plans to go back. So this to me was this office, setting up this office, left a huge blueprint on my life in every respect.
Yeah, I can only ditto that comment, to be honest, because I also came out for a 2-year secondment, and it's still going.
It's
right?
still going,
so,
yeah.
So I think it's become relatively
Yeah, and
permanent.
we brought some good people along with us afterwards. I mean, Johnny came first after me. Then Dennis came along.
Yeah,
Tamara.
Tamara's a partner here now
Tamara's
as
now a
well.
partner, yeah.
So it's very good.
Yeah.
Just to kind of talk about the people. I mean, we're at 7 partners. Okay, here we had our most recent partner admitted July 1st, Slaven Kartelo.
Oh.
Yeah.
So Slaven
which is
started with the
fantastic.
firm, and
He was our kid.
he's our kid. Yeah, he's one of ours. So this is the other part of it, is that apart from the clients, which is very important, and that's what happens. But we also, I think, took part in shaping a generation of people, or a few generations, to be honest, of professionals that most of which stayed in Croatia and have gone on to have great careers, and a lot of them are actually continuing the careers here at PwC, which is a big deal. But I think if you ask any one of them, they really appreciate the culture that was, you had a very strong impact on this. Albert, you had yours from the FS side. We still have people here. Mari Mihajlovic is around, who you will know, but there's others that have come through other mergers. We had a merger in 2013 with Grant Thornton, and that had a big impact on our practice as well. 50 or 60 people joining as well in all lines of service, right? So it's got us to where we're at, right? But these are some of the changing forces. But it took a while. I think what happened in those early years, up until 2003, 2004, it kind of stuck with us for a decade afterwards. That was kind of the shape of the office at that point in time.
It was. It set the tone.
It set the
But
tone.
I think we set a good tone. I think we were a firm who, again, I'll say, we didn't compromise on quality. And
Never,
like you said,
no.
Johnny, we were always honest with our clients. Take it or leave it. I mean, and we cared about our people. We were a family.
Well, see, these are, and again, I'm not trying to be an ambassador of our values today, but one of the core values is that we do care. And it was about the people all the time. And it was difficult to have somebody leave.
Yes.
If you remember, you look at classic turnover rates in other offices around the world, and you said, oh, we didn't have anybody leaving. Nobody wanted to leave, right? And then after a while, you're going, you have a bunch of people, but you don't have a proper pipeline for people to get promoted because you didn't have business cases. We actually have to grow the business a bit. And eventually things started to happen, right?
And we truly, at least I did, I always tried to protect our people and our headcounts. I mean, you remember the pressures we used to get in certain years, headcount is, 1.2 people too many. And like, no. So we always try to make it work. Like as Johnny said, getting new clients and things just to make the metrics and the optics good so that we can actually retain our staff. Because in the end, that's all you have. I mean, your staff is your resource. I mean, that's your money makers.
Yeah, we sell hours. That's what we look at it, but you want those hours to represent quality experience for the clients, right? And quality experience for our people as well. So as I mentioned before, we have a new partner, but we have others in the pipeline as well. From my perspective, I said, I don't want to leave until we have 10 partners. When we have 10 partners, then I think it's time to say good night.
You're
right?
on the track.
Yeah, we're on the track to get there. When you look at that, Albert, from your perspective, it's another question I asked you about, quality of management or the thoughts of management, mindset of management. How about the staff when you came? Again, you had a interesting change of culture coming from Switzerland to Croatia in a business perspective. How did you find the teams we had here?
I think the real issue for me was handling the two different culture in PW and in Coopers and Lybrand. Because I started at the time of the merger, with the merger of the two companies, and PW was a really open, international, with a lot of expats, or many expats. All the people spoke English or understood English, and on the Coopers and Lybrand side, people were local. They had local businesses. Some of them didn't know well English or not at all. So there was quite a cultural difference. So I think the key to that was to bring in new people every year, to start with the pipeline, to recruit people from the university, and to train them through international accounting programs. We had this, I forget the name of
ACCM.
The ACCM, and we made our people to go through these programs and start opening up internationally.
We still do this.
Yeah,
it's still
That's
there.
good.
It's still there. Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, if you recall, I think when we first started ACA, not everybody was on board in terms of our competition, and then they started to come around.
Because it's an expensive proposition. It's not cheap.
It was
It's a big
very
time
expensive.
investment and money investment for the firm.
Big investment,
Yeah.
big investment, and things have changed over time where it's not absolutely mandatory for everybody to go through that, but anybody who does obviously has the benefit of an international designation that goes with it, right? So, that I guess would be one of the cultural sides that you had, but you had to deal with two different forces, as you said, Coopers and Price.
Yeah, it was just two worlds coming together, and there were some heads on, and what you always have. So
Resistance to change. Then.
yeah.
When do you think that sort of really came together into a different level?
I think it came together to a different level when we all moved together, and then we had the first PwC away days. That I think helped a lot for people to meet privately. Otherwise, they wouldn't have probably done that. I think that was the starting point.
The away days are
yeah.
very strong,
And the moving together to one office.
One office, yeah.
That was the key to bring them really together. You couldn't mix teams because of the difference between the banking and the non-banking side, and so that was the more difficult part than to have mixed teams.
Plus, I think with the evolvement of time, as the country became more international, let's say, more foreign companies came in and more internationals floated around the city and around the country, business became more global, let's say. And I think our people saw that as well. So there was no more incubator, the Croats versus the internationals. They had to adapt. Everybody had to adapt. So.
Very true. Yeah, the globalization definitely occurred.
Absolutely.
That in the 2000s, and lots of movements and stuff like that. We've had many people go on to comment in the meantime. And
we always supported that, yeah.
Yeah, we always supported that. It's difficult to say no, even when you need them. And I know there was times where we had, some pressures, some people that were needed, and were asking to leave or
Absolutely.
whatever.
But I think those things only, I mean, I'm a child of secondment, you're a child of secondment. Those are things that develop you. And I am fully supportive of that in any organization. If somebody has a chance to see something, how it functions somewhere else, and bring it back or not bring it back, it's also learning something about yourself. So,
Just to see that things can be
Yeah.
done differently.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
This helps a lot.
Yeah.
So, we're talking about secondments. I mean, Albert, you were actually on secondment when you came here as well.
Absolutely. We all three were on secondments. I was on secondment here, originally for 3 years, and then I could extend that for another 2 years, and that was just great. And I learned a lot for me personally. And especially when I went back to Switzerland, that helped me a lot to manage all the situations I found there. Because they went through a merger as well as we did here, and they were far away from where we were at the
Really?
time I left.
Really?
Interesting.
That was interesting to see.
I didn't even think about that aspect of it.
No.
Wow. That's good to hear that a Swiss banking partner came to Croatia and learned something.
Exactly who would thought.
I learned a lot.
No, that's good to hear. Actually, when you say that, there's so much underestimating the value of being here as well, and I think we've always compared, even going back to Canada regularly and seeing what our colleagues, from school are doing and what we've been doing. But I know I think after you left, I went to Russia for a couple of years and came back. And that was a great experience, but I also say I brought a lot to the table from my experience in Croatia thus far, let alone having Canadian background. I don't know what you think about it.
I think the situations that we have seen in Croatia in these last 25 years, or particularly the earlier years, are nothing that you will ever see in the real world. And I think if you can handle these situations here, you can take on the world, honestly. And I personally would find the work in some of our offices in Canada, for example, in my old office in Vancouver, probably not so exciting, not so challenging, a little bit monotonous. Every year being quite the same and everything being quite correct. And here, there's always some challenge, there's always some potential issue, there's always some potential scandal which you have to manage around, which, can be frightening, but it's also very exciting. And I think that's what kept us here all these years, because no day was the same.
Yeah, I also think you find, and you guys will, I think you'll agree with me, when you come here as an expat, especially at that point in time, you're a novelty to everybody as well, so they find you interesting. I'll be honest, my first couple years, the first 6 months, the most difficult part was the language. Even though I grew up speaking Croatian, when you get into a business environment speaking Croatian, it's a little bit different, right? And I remember the first meeting, I think it was at Inker, whatever, also one of our first clients, and sitting there and thinking, okay, here we go, we're talking about production process, and the ladies running the accounting start, and I look and I go, oh my God, I can't say anything right now. I just looked and nodded and smiled, and then luckily they were actually very kind and helped me through this.
We learned a lot from our clients.
Yeah.
I mean, even I who understood Croatian much better probably than Johnny. I mean, I went to school here for 3 years when I was young. I was born in Croatia. My Croatian was better, but the terminology that was used, and one little anecdote, I could not write properly Croatian. I could speak it over the years, and people would probably think I'm from somewhere, but I can't, they couldn't quite peg it, but I could not write it. So I would write a memo or some email, and I'd send it to Branka, my PA at the time, and I'd say, Branka po Hrvati. And she'd laugh, and then she'd do all the pade, she'd put the H where it should be, bih, nebih, and all this stuff, and I thought, my God, I'm never going to get it right. So, but we had we knew enough. At the end of the day, we knew enough to get by.
Albert, you must have, it's very interesting for you because, you're a Swiss banking partner coming in, and English, of course, is normal for you, but you were speaking Croatian as well.
I was speaking some Croatian because my wife was from Croatia, and I spent a lot of time on vacation here.
Yeah.
And I spoke some Croatian, and I read papers and so. But in the business environment, of course, I had no clue about the proper, especially Zagrebački, formal Croatian speaking. And but I tried to, and the clients, they liked it because they always understood what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I didn't use the proper words, but it was okay. I was a foreigner, so that did pass. That was no problem.
But you built some very good relationship with your banking clients because they saw you as well, the Swiss banking partner, and as a bonus, you spoke Croatian.
Yeah. Yeah, that helped a lot.
That helped a lot,
helped
yeah.
a lot.
And
yes.
you also produced some loza that people also liked, right? So
Some loza,
Yes.
yes, of course.
this is very important. More on the private
That's
side.
secret.
Albert used to say that he was a victim of tourism. He said, how did you end up here, Albert? Oh, žrtva turizma.
No.
Yeah, that's
Because at the time, that was a lot about žrtve and all about the victims of war and everything. And I was a victim of tourism, so I was a victim too.
I'm sure you weren't the only one, but this is. But we're happy that you were. Actually,
Yes.
this is the benefit to all of us. Actually,
Yes,
that you
yes.
were. Yeah, that's the language side was something I think that after a while we got past it, and I do recall having a feeling of, okay, I'm just going to say speak openly, and it doesn't matter that it's wrong or right. Because people accept it, and you can have those who could make fun of it, but you have thick skin, you get past that, and you move forward. You want to be professional and get things done, right? So, and of course, as you said, Tanya, the other overriding factor was the globalization going on, where then English speaking was actually quite important.
Yes.
And
And the companies modernized as well. I mean, they brought in new people, young people, and a lot of people that had gone out to be educated abroad came back. So they started to populate the positions in the companies. So I think our clients ended up having stronger teams over the years as well, and that brought them to be more international.
And on the banking side, there were a lot of banks privatized. They were sold to foreign banks.
Yeah.
And they had to speak English as well.
And this is where us actually speaking English fluently worked well for our
Yeah.
clients. I had one experience where we actually had to go to Austria. I went with Aranka Buncic, if you remember her, and Austrian German client, and so I'm speaking English to them, and then speaking Croatian to her, and they have no idea how my Croatian sounds or how good it is, and I'm speaking Croatian the whole time. And after an hour, we had stopped for a break, and the German client says, "John, where did you learn to speak English so well? I'm so jealous." And I told him, I go, "I'm actually from Canada." He goes, "Oh, I feel so much better now." So, 'cause he had no idea my Croatian, Padaji, was nowhere even close to being correct. But so there's anecdotes there left and right
Yeah.
about that, right? But it's a good part of the story. When we move on, then Albert, you went back to Switzerland. You said you learned a few things. I remember seeing you once in Moscow when I was there, and I think you had come up for something in Moscow.
Yeah, but I had Russian clients in Switzerland. And we had some meetings in Moscow and banking clients, of course. So that's where we met, yes.
And you stayed working for the Swiss office then?
No, yeah, I was always at the Swiss office then, yes. I was in charge of a larger group of people. It was in FS only. And it was like 3 offices and huge clients. And the basic challenges was really similar to what I had experienced here. Some of the guys were in charge of large clients, and some of the guys were in charge of very, very small banking clients, like local Raiffeisen banks, which were just in a village. So 3 people running a bank. So there was quite a difference in attitude and in the way you would approach this type of audits. So the people were different, and that hadn't harmonized, or it hadn't really merged at the time after the merger in '98. So it took a whole generation until the new staff. We always said when a guy who joins at the time of the merger, when he becomes a partner, this is when the merger is complete.
Wow. That's
true.
That's actually a fantastic point to make, because that's somebody who's really fully
Yeah.
become part of the culture and grown up through it. Tanya, you mentioned a good point as well, that when you look at the experiences we went through, especially those early days where we were doing a bit of everything, we were being reception, we did due diligence, we did audit, we did anything else you wanted us to do to try and do that. And not to mention the number of exchange rates and hyperinflation, all these other things you have to think about, from accounting to just lifetime daily perspectives. I fully agree with you that when you go through all that and then you get into some sort of environment that's normal, like, oh, you have to be in London for a week or so. And I know you went to London for a year.
Yeah.
You kind of thought, yeah, you can handle almost anything right
You
now.
can handle almost anything. I mean, you build resilience, you build improvisation skills. You just it shapes you. It really does shape you. This part of the world is really resilient and tough. And I think we all learned that.
I'll be honest, when I was in Moscow and I became a technical guy, and then I had to present, and I used to ask at the start, Croatian or English? And I was, oh no, it's just going to be in English. No, it's just going to be in English. I was like, this is so much easier. It's like, because thinking both, using terminology, the technical terms, very, very demanding, and obviously after a while it helps. The other thing I'd say is, you had an opportunity to build relationships here with different mindset, right? And then when you went to London, you did a year there. Envious of you for that. That's a fantastic place to be. How did you find being there at that point in time? Because that's actually later on in the game.
Yeah, right? I found that style of doing business with clients very formal, very structured, and position-based. For example, your relationships you were building with a CFO or CRO, restructuring officer, when they moved away from their position, that was it. That person, you were not expected to continue any kind of relationship with that person. You just moved on to the next position, which is so different than what we are used to here, because we have, reason we have kept these clients all these years is because, and we've gained new ones, is because the people we built relationships in these companies either remained in those companies, or when they moved on to other companies, they engaged us because of the personal relationship. And Zagreb is a small town. So you walk the streets and you say hello to people. Whatever you do in your business world impacts the rest of your life, or you like it or not. So your reputation follows you. And that was very different in London. I found it very impersonal, very formal, and I like this more unstructured and more
personal touch to it.
Personal touch to it, yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree that the other part we have to say, and I think we've all seen it, is our alumni also moving on and becoming successful people in the business community, and eventually becoming clients in many shapes or forms. And a lot of that, as you said, you keep those relationships going. You don't burn bridges. Even when somebody leaves, we try to have it leave on a very positive note and maintain that relationship going forward, right? I mean, Albert, did you find in Switzerland, Tanya talked about London, but how was it for you in Switzerland? Did you find, you talked about the teams, but how about the clients? Was it, when you came back, did anything change for you in this respect, or the way you approached the relationships?
I think Switzerland is more like at least the clients I had at the time, or I served at the time, it was more like the London approach. So it was more, you were very friendly as long as you were in a business relationship, but on a private level, that was rarely the case, that you would have been in contact. It's not like here. It's completely different. It's a different world.
And of course, there's always you have to be careful. I mean, there's the independence issues and everything, but I think we're all aware of those, as are our clients. So, I don't think we cross the borders. No. But the level of relationships, the breadth of the relationship, I think here is wider than it is in maybe the Western.
I think one of the factors here is with us being here, we had these relationships and we were expats. So we really didn't grow up here. We didn't have that base here. I know you were born here, but from a college and university perspective where you build your networks, we didn't have that behind us. So I think our approach would have been different anyways, just because of that fact alone, And I think that's the interesting point, is that when we look at other consulting firms, they also a lot of them started with expats coming in, but not a lot of them had people stay for a long time. Some did, but others didn't, right? And I think this is, at the time turned out to be a pretty successful formula, I think, in terms of how you go about building a practice and hopefully sustaining it.
I'm very proud of what's been done in the last 25 years.
I think you should be proud. I think, I'll tell you from my perspective, for both of you, you made incredible impacts. You left a big footprint on the office, even though it's a different place and a different group of people. But, the culture you portrayed, the culture you lived, is still with us today in some shape or form. There's other people here who are, believe it or not, there's other people in the office who are older than me, and they're around and they remember this. They remember both of you, and that's that has stayed, and those are things that they have passed down, and I've tried to pass down to other people as well, to keep that sort of culture alive, which is really, I think, a very humane culture of PwC.
I think so too.
This is we talk about the values that we have, and we talk about what, if you remember a phrase called the PwC experience. There was at one point in time one of the buzzwords on strategy and approach and behavior, but that's one of the things that I think both of you found very easy to live that, right?
We were the PW experience.
Yeah.
We were setting the tone.
Exactly. There was nobody else.
There's nobody else. Yeah, so.
Exactly,
Yeah.
but it wasn't something you had to learn. It was something that you just lived because
Yeah, and I
of
think
the
it
way
was
you
very
were.
personal to us. I mean, this whole office is very personal to me.
Yeah, you had a vision.
I had a vision, and it was what happened to it. I took very seriously, and I took to heart. So every failure was my failure. Every success was our success, and I'd like to think that going forward, it will continue to be a business which is run, taking care of their people as a family and friends, as opposed to just purely numbers game.
No matter how big we get,
Yeah.
it should still be the family
I
feeling.
remember the time at Kennedy, I think it was the office we had. We could actually see each other sitting at the table, and in between was Branka with her office. So when the doors were open, we could actually see each other and and speak to each other when there was an issue or something to discuss.
Yeah.
That was very, very helpful.
Yeah, very open relationships, and a lot of, I think, we joke about it, but these lunches, janjatina, these type of things, but it's about building genuine trust and relationships and friendships. Actually, I think that's what we haven't said. It's really friendships in the end. It's not just relationships with clients. It's friendships, and having friends you work with, friends you care about around you, right, the whole time. I mean, we go back a long time, and Albert, we've all known each other now for over 20 years.
We've all kept in touch.
Yeah.
And there's other people within the firm that we're in touch with.
And that's one of the things I think that I hope, going forward, anybody who's watching this will say, especially the younger people, will say, this is what I want, because that's what you have in the end. It's those experiences and relationships and people around you, long after you leave PwC, to have that sort of benefit.
And you grow with that relationship, yes.
And I hope that young people going through, I know it's a very disposable society today. Young people don't have the attention span that we did. I mean, we were happy to have a job, when we were hired, it was like, wow, great, big firm.
Yeah.
And we were willing to stick it out to the promotions and to the different levels, and each one of us made it to the top. But young people today, their attention span is not so big.
You can't blame them for that.
I know, that's the way the society is going, but I hope that they see this firm as a place that they have a future, but they need to invest the time. That it's not just quick wins, let's say, and quick promotions. That you actually have to, for your own good and good of the service that you're going to be doing, for the good of your clients, you need to devote the time and do the groundwork. And but that there's lots of opportunities globally, not just in Croatia. I mean, I think the kids today should be. I mean, call them kids. Anybody is, to me, is a kid now. These kids today should be looking forward to something they want to do globally and say, what can the firm do for me? And I think they can do a whole lot. And I hope that this is being explained to them along the way.
Well, this is part of the thing. I mean, we, as we've grown as a firm, we obviously developed many parts of the office, and we do have not just the lines of service, but we have great human capital team. We have a marketing communications team, and I'll have to say that that's one of the things that has been a goal, is to try to communicate what's there. And sometimes it's not about us doing it; it's about our people doing it, being the ambassadors, right? And talking well about PwC, not just in Croatia, but generally, and giving them that experience and a reason to do so, right? And this is where, I would say the attention to detail is very important, and those first few moments, even coming into the office for the first time and people you meet, have that big impact on people. And I think for both of you, again, you're going to say, when you're not a partner, people look to the partners and say, oh, geez, I'd like to be one, or I'd like to talk to one. It's very special. But, both of you have had the open door policy. We talk about open door policies about being accessible, right? And I think it stands today to still mean a lot, is to be accessible to people at any time, right? And not to have some big wall in front of you, some impenetrable door that they can't get through.
I think Slaven becoming a partner is a great thing for the firm here, because it sets an example that you don't have to be an expat, you don't have to have, you know, loads of experience from somewhere else to become a partner, that you can, you know, if you take the time and you're willing to put in the time, you can do it. And hats off to him.
That's great.
Yeah, I think the point with that is, and I wanted to touch on that earlier, we talked about being friends. So we have 7 partners now, and I'll be honest, you know, we have there's no policies, no written rule, but we get along really well. I think we really like each other a lot. But the point is this, you don't necessarily have to like each other, but you have to respect each other. And respect is another word that's, you know, needs to be used a bit more, I think, these days, for everybody, right? And one of the things to respect is actually PwC itself and the brand and what it offers. You know, you talked about that, right? And one of the things that it's offered is the experiences that you have both been a part of and given to people. And I think you know, anything that comes after this is going to be very interesting, and it doesn't have to be the same as what it was, but you would hope that the
never
culture,
be the same.
yeah,
It's evolving.
Yeah.
it's evolving, but there's certain themes here and a culture that we hope would also evolve and become even stronger going forward in the future. So guys, I feel like we've come to a point where we've almost exhausted all topics. Do you have any sort of parting words to everybody, you know, to the youth, to our employees today, to the people, their alumni? Ladies first, Tanya.
I don't know, I'd just like to, you know, say congratulations for 25 years.
Yeah.
And thank you to everyone who contributed during those 25 years. And I hope that we created some good careers out of this. And I hope there's more good careers to come out of this firm. And I hope the next 70 years go, 75 years go. We won't see it, but
You never know.
you never know. And job well done, Johnny.
Thanks, Tanya. Albert.
Yeah, I think it's important to keep up the spirit in learning and evolving, and we don't know what is going to happen in the future, but adapting to the requirements of the future and evolving into that direction with this type of spirit. This, to me, is the key message. Yeah.
I want to thank you both. I want to also say to everybody, you know, we've all had really good careers at PwC. It's impacted our lives, and I think anybody who's with us now, who will maybe be with us in the future, you know, look at this as an example. I mean, we all feel young at heart. Time flies. 25 years has gone by like this, okay? And, you know, you do have to stick it out sometimes to move forward. We hope that we provide something that, you know, would attract any one of you to stay with us for a while and try and build a career. And it is true, we want everybody to succeed. We want them to have a great career, and I like what you've said. You know, there's careers and lives that can be built upon this, and very nice careers and lives in Croatia. And for many of it, it's already happened, right? So we hope there's gonna be many more. So thanks a lot, guys. It's been an honor to speak to you. It was great working with you when we worked together, and I hope to see you guys again. Okay.
Sure.
Okay. Thanks a lot, guys. Hope to see you soon. So I'm here with Francois Matelar, and I hope I pronounced it correctly because I've said it many times in the past. Francois, it's great to see you. It has been, I would say, too long, but I'm happy to have you live online here. And let's go back. You know, you had a significant role to play, and my recollection is that you were a country managing partner of Croatia and Slovenia at the same time.
That's correct.
Do you remember which years that was? We're going back now.
No. I think it was before 2015. That's all I know.
Yeah. I think it might have been 2012, 13, 14, something like that in that period.
I was in Slovenia longer time than in Croatia.
Yeah, you were in Slovenia. Well, you were in Slovenia back early 2000s, weren't you?
Yes, I started in 2000, and I remember that I took over temporarily from Albert Schönenberger because he got sick, and then Tanya got there, and then I came back. I think it was
Yes, Albert, that was like 203, 204. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. But it was a couple of years, I recall that. And I remember us doing several things together and a few interviews and this. And I think we were hoping you could stay full time in Croatia at one point in time. But
yes, I always, I mean, for me, it's, and I always say that here is the most beautiful country in Europe. No, I really had the good times in Croatia. I have a fantastic country. Zagreb is a very nice city. The people are nice. Everything. I cannot say a bad thing about Croatia.
well, that's nice. That's nice to hear. I would ask, you are an FS, financial services partner.
Yes.
What were the clients you were mainly handling when you were here? Do you recall? Was it PBZ or was it Zagreb?
I mean, it changed in the beginning. It were big entities because I remember that we did Zagrebačka banka, Zaba, if that still exists.
Yeah.
We did the Central Bank of Croatia. I do not know the exact name.
Yeah, Hrvatska Narodna banka.
Sorry?
Yeah, Hrvatska Narodna banka, Croatian National Bank.
Yes. I had some meetings there, very nice meetings. We had some insurance clients. Is Maria still working with you?
Yes, she is. She's a director here in the firm.
I give her my regards. And Damir Radmilovic, is that the name?
Yes, Damir. Damir left a few years ago, but is having a career with some of our clients and others, right? So
Yes.
But yeah.
So with Maria, we did some insurance clients, but the big clients were in the beginning Zagrebačka and the Croatian National Bank.
And how did you
I
find
think
that?
Albert Schönenberger, I think I was maybe concurring partner. I do not know how you name it. Maybe Albert was the signing partner.
Albert was
It's a bit confused. I'm a bit confused. I mean, so many things
it's okay.
happened to recollect. But we had a nice portfolio, and we made a lot of proposals. But as in Slovenia, price was a lot of times an issue, so it was difficult to win clients. I do not know if it's still the case.
It is still the case today. Maybe not so much for the bigger groups or bigger clients. They're looking a lot more at the quality side of the proposal as well. So and the team. I think when it comes to banks and insurance companies, having the expertise is very important. Maybe more important these days than it was before. Although I think it was very important back then to have the expertise as well. But it just gives the pricing a smaller weight in the overall decision, I think, right? So how did you find, Francois, because you come from a Western European background and you have experiences in many countries from around the world, as I recall. How did you find our level of people, the staff, when you came to Croatia to work with the teams?
Well, extraordinary, like you. I mean, you came from Canada. Tanya came from Canada. The people that I worked with were of a very high level. No, I mean, I did not. I have never seen or regarded Croatia as an emerging country. I think you were part of Eastern Europe. You were maybe late to join the Euro and the European Union, but I think you were always at par with Slovenia and other countries.
Thank you.
I've always understood that, but there were some licensing problems, and that's maybe why it was led by Albert in Switzerland or other countries. And it takes time to set up an office and to find staff, but I always found of the highest levels. I think we never had an issue in that respect, or not a lot of times.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think we did.
But in audit and tax, or in insurance and tax, I think you were at par with other countries.
Yeah, no, I think we were doing very well now, and we have 250 people in the office now, Francois.
Wow,
and,
that's more than double that when I left. Has this merger been going on? Hrombic, or what was it? Hrombic,
the Grant Thornton merger. Yeah, we did that back in 2013, and then obviously, large group of people came then, but some went, some left as well. And we've had also obviously been hiring a lot of people in the meantime as well. Our consulting practice is 15, 20 people. Wow. Our deals practice is just as strong, if not bigger, right? It's a very strong deals M&A, right? right?
Uh-huh.
We have an EU services team that fits into the tax and legal team, right? So,
Mhm.
and of course, our assurance practice now has, close to 100 people when you look at not just core audit, but we have broader assurance services. We have CMAS, capital markets, and risk assurance services. And
And how
such.
many partners are there in Croatia now?
7.
Wow. And do I know any of them apart from you?
Yeah, remember Tamara?
Yes, Makazovic.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah,
Makazovic.
Makasovich, yes. Do you remember Slaven Kartelo?
No.
Slaven was
Slaven, it rings a bell, but I cannot visualize him.
he was an auditor, so he's now become an assurance partner as well.
Wow.
The rest, I guess you wouldn't remember because most of them came from Sinisha and Hrvoje came from the merger.
Hrvoje, but he came in as a partner, maybe.
Yeah, Hrvoje Jelic and Sinisha Dusic came in as Gombic has left, right? And we have Marko Marušić is another partner that came with the merger, but he just became a partner a year and a half ago. And Damir Kecko became partner as well a year ago. He's also part of deals, right? So, it's a good.
Done. Congratulations. Congratulations.
Thank you. No, it's very good. Francois, it's grown. You'll be interested to know the numbers. We hit about $20 million US dollars in revenues this year, right? This past fiscal year. So
that's about 3 million a partner. That's a lot. Yeah. I always found very easy to interact with the people, clients, staff in Croatia. I found it a very easy country to work and to live in. Very easy, apart from the language for me, but for the rest it was very, very easy. And I found the people very, very open and very friendly. And as I said, I cannot say bad things about Croatia. I had a good time. I learned a lot too.
Francois, how about just a closing sort of word from you in terms of any message to the people from your side? I mean, you spent a few years, you spent a lot of time, you did it, you gave a huge effort, to be honest. There was a huge effort from your side. I witnessed it with you covering 2 countries and going back and forth. Anything you'd like to say to, people past, present? No,
I want to congratulate you and all the people who made it from 0 people to 200. That's fantastic. 20 million euro turnover. That's a lot. So really, really congratulations. I enjoyed every minute I was in Croatia. It was a very nice country to work in. But to work with the people, with the staff, with the clients. It was nice to travel in Croatia. I say Bok.
Yes, Bok. Francois, Bok. We'll see you soon, I hope, okay? And thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye-bye.